1,000 troops to protect the next caravan. That's when Muslims came down and attacked the caravan. That was the Battle of Badr. Why was there a Battle of Badr? It wasn't because anyone went out and attacked the Muslims. It was because the Muslims kept attacking the caravans and the Meccans decided to protect their property. So after that, it's non-stop battles. It's the Battle of Badr, it's the Battle of Uhud.
Who won this battle, the Meccans or the...
Muslims won, the Muslims won that first battle.
All right.
And so they win this first battle. They were outnumbered, and they said, there you see, Islam, Allah is for us. Allah is protecting us. He's helping to win our battles. The next battle, Battle of Uhud, the Muslims get crushed, but this, of course, wasn't... In other words, remember, because earlier we're talking about consistency. Use the same standard. When Muslims win a battle, it's because Allah is with us. It shows that Islam is true. When Muslims lose a battle, well, you know, hey, sorry, we lost. So Muslims lost the Battle of Uhud.
This is when he went to Medina?
Yes, this is after Medina. So Muslims lost that battle. They were crushed. Muhammad was almost killed. His blood was he was bleeding and so on. Later on, they had the Battle of the Trench. No one's really hurt too bad. I mean, as far as the armies, they eventually dispersed. That's when Muhammad slaughtered the Qurayza Jews. So this is what we have here. What we have is a pattern. When Muhammad is in Mecca, he's a persecuted prophet. Peace and tolerance, everyone. Let's all just get along. I'm going to condemn you, but don't do anything. Don't do anything back to me because, hey, it's wrong to persecute. Don't persecute anyone. Later on, when Muhammad has an army around him, he's strong enough to fight, then it's, hey, convert to Islam. I'm going to keep attacking you until you convert to Islam or you're dead. Sheer hypocrisy, sheer hypocrisy. Don't attack me. Don't attack me if you're in control. But when I'm in control, you'd better listen to me. You better do what I say or you're going to die. So this is a situation.
Let's take a break and we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break and we'll be back. Stay with us.
Jesus, hope of the nations. Jesus, comfort for all who mourn. You are the source of heaven's hope on earth. Jesus, light in the darkness. Jesus, truth in each circumstance. You are the source of heaven's light on earth. Jesus, hope of the nations. Jesus, comfort for all who mourn. You are the source of heaven's hope on earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Our program is Jesus or Muhammad. We are talking about the spirit of Islam, and we received many calls and comments about how tolerance is the West towards Islam, and Islam, of course, when we hear the news from the Middle East and any country in the Middle East, we don't find that kind of tolerance on the other side. And we talked also the beginnings of Islam in Saudi Arabia and the wars that was fought there to stabilize the whole Arabian Peninsula. And then we know from our history, we studied the Islamic Empire when it spread all over the Middle East and some parts of the European countries also, like Spain and southern France and all of these, we call it al-Futuhat al-Islamiyya in the history. This segment particularly, we want to talk about Islam, spread of Islam in the West. When we say the West, like Australia, Europe, United States, Canada, the Western Hemisphere in large, because we hear a lot of people, oh, Islam is growing, and by 50 years, every country in Europe will be a Muslim country, and then really Islam will take over. And some people has this policy of gloom and doom, and other people said no, this is not right. And so, what do you think about? You said you have something else before we go to the next segment.
Oh, we can talk about this
All right,
if you want.
all right.
We want to talk about Islam in the world today. Now, this is very important because, as we mentioned earlier, Muslims will actually claim that the spread of Islam is evidence that it's true. Of course, if numbers decline, they would never say that it's evidence that Islam is false.
So
just
Hitler was true.
just like if we win a battle, that's proof that Islam is true. If we lose a battle, no problem.
Hitler was true or false? I mean, he was, when he started and killing, and the same story.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So now the question is how is Islam spreading so rapidly in the world? Well, very simply, the main issue as far as growth in the Muslim world is birth rates. Birth rates. How many babies do Muslims have? I have a friend from Lebanon. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but 50 years ago, Lebanon was a majority Christian nation. 50 years ago, there was a country in the Middle East that had a majority Christian population. There is not a majority Christian population there anymore. I asked him why. He said, well, Christians were focused on sending our children to school, getting good educations, and we'd usually have just a couple of kids. The Muslims were having 7, 8, 9 kids, and over a period of just a few decades, Muslims were able to have a majority in the country. Think about that. There's tremendous power in having children. If you take, the bottom line here is, if you take an area that's the vast majority one group, and you have a smaller group, but that smaller group is having 3 times as many children as the rest of the country, it's only a matter of time. It might be 10 years, it might be 200 years, but eventually they're going to outnumber you. Now, this is important because in Europe, the birth rates of Muslims are 3 times higher than the birth rates of non-Muslims. What does that mean? Well, it could change. It could change. In other words, Muslims could fully westernize and the birth rates could drop. But if it remains the way it is now, with Muslims having 3 times as many children, if that remains the same, then it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before they start outnumbering you in certain areas. So that's certainly a concern to many people. And the bottom line here is that Islam tends to keep Muslim countries in the 7th century. In other words, let's get back to the 7th century. We need to live the way Muhammad lived in the 7th century. And most Muslim nations, therefore, are classified as third world nations. And one of the characteristics of third world nations is high birth rates. So amazingly, a lot of the spread of Islam has to do with Islam's ability to keep countries technologically backwards as third world countries. If you look at a place like the United States, people have maybe 2 kids. Go to many Muslim countries having far more. So what happens is those countries that are having far more children, the population is exploding as it is not in the West. And if those children are going to become Muslims, and of course they are, if you're in a Muslim country, you're almost guaranteed to remain a Muslim. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Then the population is going to spread. And Muslims look at this and say, look, Islam is spreading. Because of Islam's ability to keep countries in the 7th century, to keep them backwards, to keep them as third world countries, because of this, Islam must be true. A very strange claim to say that because Islam keeps countries technologically backwards, it must be true. So that's one reason. The other reason, as far as conversions are concerned, it's outright deception. It's outright deception. As I said earlier, I've never met a convert to Islam who had anything close to a good reason for converting, or who had done anything close to a careful study of Islam prior to converting. It's always horrible reasons. It's always based on straightforward deception. And people convert. People convert to Islam because they hear Islam is grounded in science, or Islam promotes women's rights. And it's absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And yet people convert. So Islam generally can, if you want to know how Islam can spread, here's how it can spread. It can spread through violence. The problem is, in the West, Islam is not strong enough to spread through violence, through going out and conquering people and forcing them to convert. But the main method of the spread of Islam in the early period was that you terrorize people.